I've just taken my air guitar down, and I want to wish you all a fine welcome to this cold, blustery, windy, and wet day in Angleland. And to those of you who are tuning in from wherever you're tuning in, welcome to another IPSA kind of magic. IPSA, the Independent Personal Search Agents Association, current chairman, one Hamish McLay of Search and Convey, and his trusty companion, sidekick, Paula Purnell. Lovely to have you both here. Today's topic for the IPSA Massive is a hidden agenda, the battle behind your property search. Now, with such cryptic words, it would be wrong and remiss of me not to throw you straight under the bus, Hamish.
Well, I think my first thought to say that since Paula was last with us, we've had a number of other agents, as they like to be called in some instances, but researchers we call them. So I thought it's about time my esteemed researcher ought to join us, largely because her work of late has sort of rather inspired me. It's Paula that does a lot of the hard work. You see, I didn't have to do the hard stuff, the research stuff, because somebody like Paula's there doing it for me. But something particularly lately sort of came up, and we've had a need because of the clients that we have and the clients that we support. Our independence as providers, as is the case with all IPSA members, gives us the opportunity to provide what our clients require in the terms of searches, in the terms of data. We have the option to choose. And what it is, particularly, we've got a really good sort of client of ours. They look at different, depending on what it is, they will require a different style of search. It could be a different environmental search. It could be a different sort of highway search. But we can flip backwards and forwards to suit all of that at our own choice, which is going to benefit the client most. That's our choice of things. But what I thought was important to bring about, because one of my positions within IPSA, and in fact, I'm very fortunate within that position as IPSA, because I've got a tremendous executive officer who actually sort of handles the majority of this information that comes through. We occasionally get, in fact, all too often, this last 6 months, details and items coming in from our members who are saying various things about, oh, hang on, we've just lost this client. And the reason we've lost this client is because somebody has been carrying out activity which one wouldn't consider to be the most integrous. It may be, but it's perfectly all right. However, what's happened, and it's normally to do with those particular sort of people who are able to sort of support high volume searches, if you like, that are high volume producers of searches amongst other various bits and pieces. They found that it was quite a good idea. Not only could they max out on sort of the profits they were already making, if they bought into other companies that provided management services and accountancy type services to their clients, that would give them even greater leverage, greater power over their particular clients they were taking on board. And if they decided at any occasion that, like, oh, the contracts come up for renewal, maybe we can now increase the cost of this, unless, of course, you're willing to get all of your searches from us. Now, that puts the solicitor, the conveyancer, in a very disadvantageous position.
Right.
They want to do the best for their clients, but can they still do that? But I mean, let Paula explain. I mean, really, some of the work she's been doing of late, switching different bits and pieces around, and the ease of which we can actually sort of achieve it.
Paula, tell us about the work you've been doing of late, please.
I can source different types of environmental reports. We're not tied into one specific company or one specific type of report, whether that be residential or commercial. We can more or less tailor the report to what our client needs. And usually, I mean, an example, if they're buying a shop that's a commercial, we can get a certain type of environmental report that wouldn't cost half as much as it would if our client were purchasing land that they were going to build a factory on. Whereas from what I can gather, if they're tied into this, you have to buy all of your stuff from us type platforms, they've got no choice in what type of environmental search they get.
Yes, one size fits all.
Yeah, and sorry, but buying a property isn't one size fits all. And I'd much rather save our client some money and still make a profit for the company than say, no, you have to buy this, when they don't have to buy that. They should be able to choose what type of report they want to purchase.
Hamish, is it the same old story that if you go to the factory conveyancers, they'll just give you effectively a template, fill in a template, you get the same basic results? Whereas if you're dealing with a person who is imbued with knowledge and also local knowledge at that, they can dig down and find out everything, not just the top layer.
Yes, I mean, the reality is we can make a comparison. I wasn't trying to make that comparison this week. I was actually wanting to sort of point out you're quite right. I mean, you are learning, Gareth. You are learning.
I'm learning at the feet of the master. I can't avoid it. Sorry.
One of there are so many advantages, and I mean, I sort of listed them and some of the introductory sort of words I'd sort of put together relative to this particular sort of podcast. I mean, we haven't had quite the same level of pressure of late. I mean, Paula can actually sort of reinforce it, but I think we are getting a few queries. How quickly can we turn this around? Because of the impending, we've got this situation coming up, as everybody knows. We have the situation coming up where we're changing the land tax, stamp duty, or whatever you want to call it. It's stamp duty, land tax, isn't it? SDLT. However, that is being so. It's important for people to be able to get their property bought and paid for, and all the rest of it done prior to the 31st of March. And as a consequence of that, it is still possible to buy into property and still buy that piece of property prior to the 31st of March, but it's getting pretty darn close. But it is putting pressure on various people. But it does mean if that actually happened to come up, that somebody want, and there can be weeks difference. And I think we've mentioned those of late. There can be weeks of difference between the turnaround that somebody like Paula can put together research within the time frame that she's working, compared to the time frame that unfortunately the high volume providers, they can't actually do it because there's no guarantee that they're dealing with too many. They don't know what's going to hit them. Sometimes they don't even know the turnaround times from the source of information they're getting. So it's having that element of choice to be able to sort of decide on it. And I think one of the things I was speaking to Paul about, because we've been looking at, there's been a bigger demand of highway searches, which is something which in actual fact, I mean, the price difference was quite horrendous, wasn't it, Paula? The price difference on the highway search from the council. Can you remember what
Paula, tell us, these highway searches from the council do appear to be extortionate, yes?
Some can be, some can't. It all depends whether they charge per question or whether they charge. I mean, we did one on a property that was nowhere near an adopted road because it was a farm, and to get basically a highway search, I think the client probably wanted an extent of highway. How long is this highway? And I mean, depending on what size plan you wanted, it went from, I think it was about £100 up to like £400.
Wow.
Yeah. When it was like, right, okay, yeah, the road is adopted and the road is adopted the full extent of the road.
Right. So
but obviously, because of the size.
But that's like that's a 300% increase.
Yeah. And it was information that I knew anyway, but to cross the T's and dot the I's, they wanted the highway search, and we managed to get it for quite a bit cheaper than that. But that's by that's local knowledge and the ins and outs and the ifs and buts.
I have to say that we can champion your local knowledge here, because that's what makes a lot of difference. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because I am a inherently nosy person. I will dig, and I will dig.
I would never say that, Paula. Never.
No, I am inherently nosy. I am, and I will dig and I will poke and I will dig and I will poke until I'm satisfied I've got everything I can possibly get. So I'll blow my own trumpet that way. Yes, when it comes to my local knowledge and council knowledge, I'll dig and poke and press all the buttons until I get exactly what I know I need to get.
Well, that's the thing, you see. That's the thing, because a system-based will poke so far. And if they get no answers, they get no answers. If they get some answers, that's what you'll get. Whereas when you've got a human involved,
I'll be like, no, hang on a minute, there's more to it than this. Just looking at what the information I get, I can be like, that doesn't sit right. So I'll do a little bit more digging. Okay, it might take me a couple of hours, but I will sit and do that digging. Or I'll pass it on to one of our other researchers who's even better at digging than I am.
What amazes me, Paula, is that you managed to get through it in such a timely fashion. Because if you go to a lawyer who's just using one of these semi-automated mechanisms, your lead time before you're going to get this information can be weeks.
Well, this is the biggest purchase anybody's ever going to make. This is important. So why wouldn't I? It's the personal touch, to coin a phrase. With personal search agents.
There is the independent personal search agent.
Yeah.
So it's the personal touch, yes. Hamish, is the personal touch the key difference?
That the thing is, there are so many differences. I mean, that is a significant advantage, because we aren't dealing with the high volume. Unfortunately, it's the mode of employment, isn't it? I mean, if you actually sort of look at it from a horticultural sort of perspective, you've got farming methods which were employed by the Americans, for example, and were employed in various parts of sort of Europe that we wouldn't touch in the UK. If you want a quality product, there's a different way of actually sort of handling it. And really, that's what the comparison is. If you want your factory sort of type chicken stuffed with whatever the Americans stuff it with, I don't know what it is these days, because there's this big, but they're genetically modified anyway. We don't have genetically modified searches. However, we do have searches that people have taken time to, and it does make a difference, because with that personal touch, as Paul has explained, there's also an element of refinement which goes into it, because there can be information which is superfluous to requirements. So why bother with it? It takes up space and all the rest of it, and it's something extra for that solicitor to read. So if they're not having to read the irrelevant sort of stuff, because there's certain obvious stuff you have to actually sort of put down there. But if you're not having to do the overkill stuff, and it's like Paula was saying about that particular sort of highway search, she mentioned that there's all sorts of information you could actually, but the reality of the situation is, what is there that's going to impose on that particular purchase? And it's relevant to that particular purchase, not the hundreds of purchases of properties that are going through the council. It's been looked at from a personal perspective. Look, if I was buying the house, what would I want to actually see? And of course, that's what Paul was actually saying, that, hey, look, you can look at it from that perspective if you're going to buy it. And it's one of the things that, I mean, Paul has been sort of like that. And, I mean, she's been with us now, 18 years, I think. Or is it 7? What year are we? 2025? Yes,
I think, Hamish, just after the Earth call.
Yeah, just after the Earth call. That was right, yes. 2007, I've got the certificate here in the office somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes, it's been a while.
So now that we've established that Paula is a very carefully trained nosy Parker,
Yeah.
and that it's the personal touch, and more importantly, the dogged, almost dare I say it, please forgive me, bloody mindedness, to try and ferret through and find out what's really going on. That means that the vendor is going to end up winning because they get real information upon which they can take real decisions.
Yeah, they get real relevant information that is going to affect their property or not going to affect their property.
Right.
Rather than the
Sorry.
this, and this. Look, there was a planning application in 190 dot when it was a farm.
Right. Exactly.
I don't care that it had a grain silo on there in 190 dot. It's not relevant to the property or the development that's been developed 3 times.
No,
that's the sort of information you will get from somebody that is basically a keyboard warrior that sits behind a keyboard and just blindly fills in the paperwork.
It's experience and as well as the training, isn't it? Hamish, would you care to take us home, sir?
Well, I think we can sort of emphasize it. There's several aspects which came in there, and one of the relevant, it is so relevant that it's personal. And IPSA members, they are all personal search agents, hence a particular sort of title. They're also independent, and that independence enables us to actually ourselves go in and work with the council or one of our members to do exactly the same thing. But it's not just relative to the local authority searches on which we carry out the research, because when Paula's putting the packages together from all the various other providers, whether it be because we need environmental searches, we can actually have in some instances. I mean, Paula's been pulling up some recently, which sometimes aren't normally required, like the old chancel sort of check types. We've got, I don't know how many different providers we've got of chancel check searches. Now, if you don't know what chancel check search is, tune in another time and we'll tell you about that particular one. But the source of this information, because of our independence, and as is the case with all other IPSA members, we can make the choice in the best interests of our clients, the best interests of the clients that we're working for, which will be in the best interests of their clients. So it's not based on profit. It's not even based on sort of availability necessarily. It's based on what is important for that particular transaction.
Fabulous. Well, do you know what? I think you've heard it here first from the people who are actually making the thing work, i.e. Paula, from the people who are directing the traffic, i.e. Hamish, and for me, who's just waving my arms around wearing silly hats. All that you need to know is that the people involved in these searches are taking it upon them as a personal rite of passage to find out what's really going on. And you ain't going to get that through the generic searches. Thank you once again, Hamish, who started this whole ball rolling. And Paula, thanks for making an appearance today. And we're dragging you away from your valuable work. And to all of you out there, if you want to get your searches done right, and you aren't already a member of it, so then you should really consider it. If you are a search agent, you should think that you should want to be pronouncing the fact that you're independent, because that gives everybody the flexibility to do what is needed to get the job done. Until the next time I speak to you and see you all, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and try and look after that mental health. Goodbye now.